than I expected. So, I know I don't expect.
All right, everybody, we are fresh back from Nikki's wedding in Mexico, and we are back for another Modern Agent Blueprint. And I'm super excited because we have Emily Grish on. She's been on before, and she's done some in-person events that I have been a part of, and she does a great job of marketing and farming, and she's great on social media with showing all the marketing she's doing and involving your kids and doing all kinds of different things in order to really become recognized in your neighborhood, and it's working. So I wanted to have her come on and talk to us about what she's doing, what she's implemented. And there's always going to be Q&A. So if you guys have any questions throughout this whole presentation, just put it in the chat or come off mute and you can interrupt and say, hey, Emily, we have a question about this. Because I'm excited to see I'm sure you have a lot of different stuff that you've been doing. And I mean, obviously I've been following along. I see all your stuff that you're doing and sharing some wins with me. So I'm excited about that. So Emily, I'm going to leave it to you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so this is actually a big thing for me because when I started farming, I just was like, this sounds like a good idea. Why not try it? And I kind of went all in. And it's the big thing with farming is being willing to be consistent about it. And, when I first met Nicole and she heard about what I was doing, you don't know this, Nicole, but like I had posted something and you're like, oh my God, this is great. And I thought, is she being for real? Or like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, because you had always been a mentor of mine, I was like, I don't know. Like, why would you think something I'm doing is great? And, farming is such a great way to connect, especially with your neighborhood. And, like I said, I kind of go all in. So I do have a presentation for you guys about my methodology of doing it, but yes, please jump in. And I also have like examples of the stuff that I've put out as it's progressed over time. So I need to figure out how to share my screen. How do I share my screen?
Sorry, I was muted. You should be able to go down to the bottom and there should be a share button.
Maybe this.
If you click the more, I don't know if you like the three dots.
Oh, more there.
Yep. And it should say share.
No, it says, oh, maybe I was pressing the arrow next to share. That was the problem. Okay.
There you go.
All right, you guys can see this?
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna go to full mode. Oh, nope.
Go to present at the top there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had to move the Zoom thing.
Oh, yeah. That drives me nuts.
Okay. I feel like, do you guys see this black Zoom thing? Is that in the way?
No, you're fine.
Okay. So first and foremost, when you start farming, you need to pick your neighborhood. Now, ideally, you're going to pick your own neighborhood because you want to get to know your neighbors, get to know the people who live around you, and build that community. But some people don't have that option. Maybe your neighborhood is too large. I have 293 homes in my neighborhood. That to me is pretty substantial. But there's a neighborhood near us that has 600 people. I think that's a lot to invest in. It all depends on what you feel comfortable with. Some people live in a really small neighborhood. There's another one around me that has maybe 50 homes. And if that's where you live and that's where you want to start, that's fine. But pick what's going to work for you. And the other factor is picking the neighborhood that's, if your neighborhood is not at a price point that you want to focus on. I will say that I've been doing this farming for, I'm in my I've been doing it for 2.5 years, and but the ROI for just getting one is a lot because my price point is 450,000 and up. So building relationships with your neighbors takes time, and that's investment in money and investment in time and effort. And so if you're doing at a lower price point, I would recommend finding a neighborhood that has a price point that you're going to want to become the expert in, and that you're going to get the ROI that you need out of it. So that's that. So becoming the expert is, I mean, it's kind of a given, right? Like, I live in a cookie cutter HOA neighborhood. So the things that I know about my neighborhood are all the common spaces, all the street names, all the different kinds of floor plans, the square footages. So I know the ins and outs of these homes, what they were built with originally, from, like the builder grade stuff to what they've common updates that people have done, remodels, things like that. If you live in a community like Nicole that's not HOA, there's all different kinds of houses. You're going to want to know things like, what are the typical ages of the homes? What comes with issues, good or bad, that come with houses of that age? The kinds of styles of homes, lot sizes, can you fence, can you not? Just all of those different things like that. And then obviously know about the things that are around you. Are there different activities? Different restaurants? What are the schools that are right there? If you're in an area that does school of choice, that's good to know, but a lot of people want to know about the neighborhood schools. Whether we're allowed to speak on it or not, it's still information that you need to know. So like for me in my neighborhood, we all go to the Lincoln Consolidated School Districts, but there's 3 elementary schools on that campus. So I can talk about the different schools because they all have different specialties. I know that, right outside of my neighborhood is Ford Heritage Park, which is a great place for people to play, and it's where they do a lot of soccer. We're right next to the 𝗵𝗄𝐶 District Library. We've got 𝗵𝗶𝗍𝒐 Corn Maze. We've got 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 orchard that's around there, Rolling Hills Water Park. These are all things that, yes, the people in your neighborhood may know, but if they've just moved there, it's still a great time for you to connect. And so it's good to know this information. So the big thing is, you know, a lot of times when people farm, whether they're doing it through mailers or doing it through drop-offs, it's always, I'm your local realtor, I'm your neighbor. If you want to talk about selling, let me know. And that's the wrong way to go about it. And I say that because we get hit up with sales all the time. Everyone sell, sell, sell. And the key with real estate and farming and building relationships is about service. It's about being helpful. It's about getting to know people and building relationships. And when you just jump off with people with I can help you sell, they're going to discard you like they do every other piece of mail or everything else that they get from any other realtor. So the way that I started is an introduction. And I have an example of it on here, but I'll show you. This was my first brokerage, so it looks very different than what I do now. But I gave them something to read. So it was an introduction to, it was a picture of my house so they could see that I do live in this neighborhood, our playground, one of our common spaces. I talked about joining the Facebook group. Like, I'm not trying to sell you on anything, but hey, did you know that we have a community Facebook group? If you don't, here's the link for it. And I gave the market update. And on the back, but it was a little bit about me when we moved here, that I'm your neighbor, and my purpose of doing these drop-offs. And it says, I created this first preserved market statistic report to keep you updated on home sales and other helpful information about your neighborhood. And I've done it every quarter since, and this was in 2022. I think it was 2022. And I've been consistent. And every time I give them a market update, looks a little bit nicer than this now, but and little facts about the information, also what's going on in our community. So there was nothing in here about selling their house. It was just, hey, this is me, and this is what I want to do for you. I also gave them a magnet, which I really do love this magnet. The idea is to give them something to keep, something that's tangible, that they can see who you are and your contact information should they ever need it. And I had people tell me, oh, I still have your magnet on my fridge. It's 2 brokerages later, but they still have my contact information if they need it. And I had a guy here who did laser engraving for me. So he made these, and it's like a real solid magnet. So I still have some because they're good magnets. And then I also gave out cookies. I have a friend who owns a bakery. So just giving out some local cookies, because, and it's joking, people call them in my neighborhood porch cookies because I leave them on their front porch. So it's really something to read, something to keep, something to eat. No selling whatsoever. This was what it was. Being consistent
go
is
back for 1 second, Emily, because I want to see, because it was kind of hard to see when you were holding it up, but I want to see what it is.
fair.
Got it. That's cute.
Things look so different now.
Yeah, your branding has changed so much. All right, keep going.
It has. But I will say this, just start. You know, like, I don't love how this looks, but this was a brand new thing for me to do. And we say it about social media. We say it about all the things. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just start. So yes, pick your frequency and be consistent. So I do drop-offs every quarter. I do them in January, in April, July, and October. So I give information for the last quarter. It's the reason why it works is because people have come to expect me. If they're outside and they're like, oh, hey, so what you got for me this time? As I said, this is now in January. I just did my 11th drop off, if I did my math correctly. And I get to meet so many neighbors. Even sometimes people are outside in January. I was talking to a neighbor for 30 minutes. He's not interested in selling, but we had a great conversation. I have had people who invite me into their homes, and so they can show me around. Oh, what do you think? What do you think that we could get if we sold? What do you think we should do about this update? Is this going to be something worth doing? And especially for the cookie cutter neighborhoods like mine, because I know every single sale that's going on, if someone was like, oh, I saw that house over on, there's a particular one on Hummingbird, like, why do you think that's listed? And honestly, I'll straight up tell them that it was overpriced, because it was overpriced by $80,000. But because I have been consistent every time, they come to expect it, and they know it, and they like talking to me. And that's what the building relationships is about. Some of these people aren't going to sell for a really long time, but some of them are original owners, and they're eventually going to downsize. And I'm the person who has been showing up 4 times a year, every year, with information and little treats and gifts, and just with my kindness. And that's why it matters. Giving a treat or a little gift make you more memorable, but it isn't always necessary, especially if you don't have the funds to do it. There are other alternative things that you can look at doing, and we'll talk about that too. So here are just some examples over the years. This one right here, this pumpkin cake recipe, this was the second one that I did when I was still trying to figure out all that I wanted to do. I don't have the backside, although actually I have it right here. So before I was figured out my brand, I did it seasonally. But what you can see on here, this little thing down here says, fun fact, I used to be a pastry chef at 𝗿𝗏𝗄𝐵 and a cake decorator and designer at Zingerman's Bakehouse. And so I'm giving them a pumpkin cake recipe because I wanted them to get to know something about me and also provide something that could be useful for them, that because of my experience, it's not a shitty recipe. It's actually really good. I did this one over here. You can see on the back here, one of the things is I give out information about HOA events. The good thing about it is I try to get more people involved within the community, but the sneaky kind of part of it is it also looks like I'm hosting a lot of this. And even though I don't say that I am, it makes me involved as a realtor as part of the community, but also I'm technically president of the HOA, for better or for worse. But my whole goal is to continue to bring the people together and build relationships. So that's always really fun to put out. This past winter, and actually the one before that, I do door hangers. And I do door hangers in January because I can put them in my coat pocket. And it just means I don't have to carry a wagon or, you know, drag a wagon or something like that. It's just easier for drop-offs. But when I was talking about if you can't do a gift, I partner with kitchen and bath remodel company, and they've given me a promo code. So I give that promo code to my neighborhood, and if anybody wants to do some remodeling, they can use that promo code and work with her. And so then, like here, I'm talking about how much equity you have and hey, what can you do with that equity? And then I give them an option for it. So even though I'm not spending the money to give them a gift, I'm still giving them something that could be beneficial. Here's some other ones. So in the springtime, I do just a small little postcard and I staple a little bag of seeds and I put them on every door. The spring market is blooming and it's thematic and I talk about what's been going on. I did get my first listing from this one. I have another one coming up in April. I've had a couple people call from my stuff and I didn't get the listing. And it's okay, but I'm getting the responses back. Here's just some more examples. More of the rock the block. For the house that I had listed, it just timing wise, when I delivered my summer, I usually do little bags in the summertime that have the cookies in it. But I also had this just listed postcard that went in it, as well as the market update and a cookie. And so I was inviting everybody to the neighborhood to the open house, showing them, you know, what we have. And it was a way to show them what I do as a realtor, because it was the first time in the neighborhood that they got to see, you know, what I was doing actively as a listing agent. Also along with Facebook, and we'll get back to that in a second. And just here's some more. I put together a photo shoot day. One of our HOA board members is a professional photographer. So I invited everyone in the neighborhood to come get family photos for the fall. So the idea really is, again, what can I give to the people in my neighborhood that isn't just me selling a house? I'm building a community. I'm building the relationships. And it was fun. We did it a couple of years in a row. Does anyone have any questions before I keep going? Nicole, I just admitted somebody that was in the waiting room.
Sorry,
Okay.
I was on mute too. I just said thank you.
Okay.
I have a question if you have a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have other realtors in your neighborhood that live there?
There used to be one, she moved out. There is another one who is in the connecting. So like we have another neighborhood that's connected to ours, and I know that they live there. But if there's anybody else, I have no idea.
Okay, so I didn't know if you did any research on the neighbors beforehand and still delivered those to them, or if you don't necessarily know your neighborhood yet.
Yeah, so I didn't do research. I actually didn't know that she was a realtor until she listed her house and sold. And like maybe it's something that I could have done, should have done, but I honestly, I'm not sure that I would care because yeah, I mean you can skip them, of course, but I'm also kind of like, see what I'm doing. Like I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna try and take over the neighborhood. So, but I don't think there's anyone else in our neighborhood, but I could be wrong.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. So bonus farming. It's exactly what it is. It is. So I do every quarter, but I also try to pop in and out in a lot of different places. So like I said, I'm on the HOA board, and in some ways that's good and in some ways it's bad. It's good because I know exactly what's going on. It's bad because a lot of people hate their HOA board. But I spend a lot of time on the board trying to foster engagement. Same thing that I do as a realtor. But I'm very active in our neighborhood Facebook group. And that's why if your neighborhood doesn't have one, then start one. Be the admin, invite everybody. It's a great way to engage with your neighbors. But the key is to be active and do not only talk about real estate. For example, a couple summers ago, my daughters and I, mostly me, made 100 square hopscotch down our sidewalk. And we took a little video and we put it up on Facebook. And I said, hey, it's a nice day. You want to come out and do a hopscotch? We've got this over here. And I gave my address. And my daughters and I go around every spring and summer and we pick up litter and we bag it up, and I'm always taking pictures and saying, hey, we're out and about. If anyone wants to come and join us, or, you know, pick your own date, let's help keep our neighborhood cleaned up. And I've had a lot of people, I see them on walks and they're like, oh yeah, we're going out, we're doing it too. You inspired us to go grab a bag. Anything you can do to, if someone's asking for vendor referrals, you know, jump on that. Be the resource, be the expert. And I do talk about real estate when there are listings and closings. I actually do it less than I used to. But there have been times when people have questions about houses and things like that. And so, or like Zestimates, trying to get more information. And so I'm always jumping in on that one. So special events, this is where Nicole was like, oh, what a great idea. So I sponsor a Kona ice truck that comes to our neighborhood. I usually do it in June. I try to find the good weather and I promote it to the neighborhood and also like to my clients and stuff like that. And then I'm in a situation where we have 2 big inflatable pools and a bounce house. And so if the day is hot, we put those up and we just invite the neighborhood over for some Kona ice. And if they have their kids, bring your suit and let's go play. Last year, I split it with a lender, which is always great. And that's also another thing that you can do if the funds aren't there, but you want to get going, is find a partner to help you offset the cost, because it also could help them get business as well. Rent a dumpster and offer it to neighbors for spring cleaning. I haven't done that yet, but I've been thinking about it. Join the HOA or know somebody on it so you know what's going on. come up with neighborhood-wide events like the chili cook-off, which I know happens in Nicole's neighborhood, which I really want to do in mine. Holiday cookie exchange, Christmas caroling, Easter egg hunts, whether that's like hiding eggs around your neighborhood or like we have a giant space on ours, and I'm thinking of like doing sections with eggs. And so like different ages for kids in different sections. So you don't have like, 2-year-olds trying to compete with 15-year-olds. Food truck nights, anything you can to build community and then be there for it. So you can talk to people, so you can engage with people. Not necessarily talking about homeownership, but the more you do it and the more they see you and the more they talk to you, they're going to know that you're the realtor.
One thing I will say is, so I wanted to do food truck in my neighborhood. I do have an HOA, and I'm part of the social committee. However, I don't really do a whole lot with it because it's too much all the time. But they were not a big fan of having the food trucks. So I was going to bring them to my house because where I live, it's kind of back a little bit, but it's still in the main like drive in. So it'd be perfect for anyone coming in. They would be able to see it and all that stuff. And they were very weird about it, saying like, what happens if somebody gets sick, or what happens if this, or what happens if that? Are they going to blame the HOA? And I'm like, well, we have a chili cook-off where people are cooking in their homes and bringing it down. So that, I mean, it could be the same thing, but I think it's just because it's new and they haven't done it before. So I'm still pushing for that. But I mean, if you're in an HOA, you might want to just get HOA approval.
Yeah, get approval.
But I mean, or ask for forgiveness later. One or the other.
We have a volunteer lawyer who helps us with our HOA, and when we moved our Rock the Block to, instead of having a food truck, having like cooking the food ourselves and trying to do like a potluck style, she was like, well, what happens if someone gets sick and what are you going to do? And it's like, yeah. So,
Right.
I mean, if you have an HOA, it's not a bad idea. Some HOAs might be a little bit paranoid. But like if you have a food truck, the person who's responsible for someone getting sick with a food truck is the food truck. That's
right. That's
part. It's just like, it's just like a restaurant.
Right. I'm like, wouldn't they have insurance for that or something if somebody came back at them? But like, it's like, if you're getting ice cream off the ice cream truck, if you get sick, are you going to sue the ice cream truck? Like, I don't know. It just seems so bizarre to me, but I guess that is the world we live in. But I would just, if you're going to do something like that, I think it's great. I mean, that's why I got involved with the HOA, with their social committee, because they do these chili cook-offs and all that stuff. And then I wear my like track jacket that's got my information on it while I'm out and doing these things. But there's a lot of stuff, like you were talking about the Easter egg hunt. I've seen a lot of people doing like the egg your house, where you can like you basically drop off flyers to all the houses in the neighborhood. And if they want you to egg their house, essentially you bring a bunch of plastic eggs in their yard and you spread them all over the yard for their kids to come out and find the eggs or collect the eggs. They sign up through a QR code, and then you, the night before Easter, run out with, whoever, you get a crew of people to go out and like egg all the neighbors' houses in the nice way, not in the mean way.
Yeah.
Put all the eggs in the front yard or hide them or whatever. But I think that's a cute idea. Obviously it takes a little bit of planning. So that might be something that has to be done next year at this point, but it is something that I see a lot of people doing, and it's a super cute idea.
Well, the nice thing is Easter is at the end of April this year. So if that's something that you want to do, like I might do something like that, put it up on Facebook, the dollar store right now has tons of eggs, plastic eggs, and go buy a ton of them and have them set. My kids are always like, you spend so much on your clients and farming and not enough on us. So I'll have to do something for them too. But like you've got time, so it can very much be worth it. Now, I would probably not give my flower seeds if I do an Easter egg hunt, because it would be the same month. And it can just, I'm not trying to spend too much money. With the exception, the most expensive thing that I did was that first drop off. I try and keep it within a budget, but again, it all depends on how big your neighborhood is. So, yeah. So what I've learned so far in my 2.5 years, it's really, becoming an expert doesn't mean knowing all the stats. It's important, but you are creating the community with you as the leader. I want people to come to me for questions, whether it's about the house or not, or, you know, what's going on in the neighborhood, or, hey, we're thinking of moving, or, hey, I have a friend who wants to live here, or, hey, are you guys going to do this event again? Or, you know, different things like that. I want them to come to me with questions. I want to be their resource, their leader, their person. I like walking around the neighborhood and seeing people and having conversations. And it's like what I put in here, you know, a lot of us crave community and friendly neighbors. And when, I don't know about you guys, but like whenever I'm with buyers, one of the things they always talk about is like, oh, are there kids playing on the streets, or are they people playing together? Are people out and about, or is everyone huddled up into their house? And obviously in the winter time, it's a little bit different, but when people are moving, that's the kind of neighborhood that they want to be in. Most of the people, and the people who live in those neighborhoods, also want to feel that way. So by bringing people together, we are providing that. Value is determined by the receiver. I put the market statistics in everything that I put out. Some people read them, some people don't. Some people care, some people don't. In the end, a lot of people care just like overall, okay, what's my house worth? But there have been times, I'm not sure, I think I have one. Oh yeah, I have this one that actually got my first listing. There was 2 houses that were the same square footage, and one sold for 400,000 and one sold for 318,000. And I actually put a little asterisk next to it. And I said, this home is an outlier and will not affect your home's value. Please reach out if you have questions. And the reason why is because it was run down. I'm pretty sure something illegal was happening in that house. I was in it a couple times when it was on the market. So we talk about like why things are so off sometimes, because it's not just like a market, here's your market statistics, it's the story behind the numbers. And there was one, we had our highest sale last year for $540,000, which blew everything out of the water for any souls that we had. And I think I put last year, I said, there is a lot of activity and buzz in the neighborhood when this house sold, because it was the only one that had sold in the quarter, as it was the first to sell over 500,000. And you know what? It's beautiful, tastefully updated, very well maintained with gorgeous landscaping. It makes sense why it sold for that price. While this sale will affect future home sales and values in our neighborhood for the better, be careful not to fall into believing that your house will automatically be worth that much as well. Realtors and appraisers look at the full comparison between not just the size, but also condition and updates of recent sold homes. And I actually had a lot of people reach out and say, this was my best card ever. Because people don't understand that. They go, oh, it's $540,000. My house is worth so much more now than it is. And the house that listed 80,000 too high, they listed at 540,000, but theirs wasn't updated at all. So I try to be very honest, but also tell the story. But that is also, so like, that's what I try to do with market statistics. I going back to the value is determined by the receiver, I usually try to give gifts because it's a psychological thing. Number one, when you give somebody something, they feel like you've given something, they should reciprocate in some kind of way. And even if it's just an acknowledgement, or by the time they need something, they're like, oh, this person has showed up 4 times a year and they always give me stuff. And it keeps you better in their mind. Food is always great because people like food. In October, I always attach a candy bar to mine, a full-size one at that. But if it's not in your budget to do something a little bit extra, the importance is just being consistent. My first winter of doing this, I didn't have any closings, not just like in farming, just in general. I was in my 2nd year of real estate and I didn't have any closings in the winter and I didn't have the money, but I was like, I have to show up because I said I was going to show up. And so I just did the cheapest door hangers I could find, but I was out there and I put them out and, you know, I got no response except the next time in the spring after I'd had some closings, I put out the seeds and someone was like, oh, hey, I've gotten all your stuff. So the consistency matters, even if you don't have the money to do as much as you want to do. And that's it. How do I get out of sharing?
I mean, I think, so one thing I want to say is I think what you were talking about is here, do you want me to stop your share?
Yeah, because I don't know where there it is.
Let me see. It's not letting
Stop
me
share.
share.
I think I got it. Okay.
The one thing I will say is I think like you talking about the houses and being very open and honest about like, hey, this is an outlier. This is why this house sold this high. Like saying stuff like that, I think is a really smart move because again, you look like the expert on why this house, instead of just, you know, have you seen these 4 houses sold in the neighborhood? You're explaining to people why this one's an outlier, why this one sold for as much as it did. Like, that's a great house. Like, this is why it sold. I think it's really smart that you piggyback off of the HOA events because that's really smart.
And I do, like you, I wear my real estate stuff to the events so people can connect it with me, even if they haven't used me.
Right. If somebody has no idea who you are, like maybe they've seen you before, but they didn't realize that you were that person.
Yeah.
So
and there are people that have moved in well past I did my original introduction. Part of me is like, oh, should I do another introduction? Because we probably have like 40 new neighbors, or no, actually, I don't think it's that many, but like 30 new neighbors since I first started doing this. They don't know me, except I always have my picture on everything that I put out. And I always have my contact information. And you know, what's interesting about that outlier one is people started asking about that on Facebook. And so I responded, and they were worried about their home values. And I showed them pictures from inside the house because there was only one picture of the exterior. So I was in there, I took pictures of all of the damage, and it gave me a really great opportunity to explain why Zestimates suck and you can't judge anything based on them. And this is the condition of the house, and this is why an appraiser wouldn't use it. It's why a realtor wouldn't use it as a comp. And it gave me a really great opportunity to educate.
Yeah. I was just going to say too, I think, you know, you just said you have a lot of new neighbors. I know your neighborhood, you get a lot of turnover in that neighborhood, a lot between that and the one next door. Maybe sending out another one of those like intro things like once a year, like, hey, maybe you know me, maybe you don't. I'm your neighborhood realtor, and putting something out there. So then you're still establishing, you know, who you are with the people who know who you are, but you're also introducing yourself to the new neighbors.
Yeah. It's been on my mind of doing it, but I'm not allowed to farm to the other neighborhood because your clients are in there. You won't let me.
It's true. You're not allowed.
Although I have gotten 1, 2, 3 people bought in that neighborhood. So I have more clients than you do in there.
All right, fine. Just don't send it to that house. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Emily, or are you guys doing any farming that is working really well for you? Nate, I know you're on here and I sent you some stuff. Did you start doing that yet? Come on. You trying to here? I can't figure out how to unmute you. You just turn your video off.
No,
And you're off again. You were there for a minute.
I'm trying to unmute myself, but I go to the screen. You're saying the video stopped? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what,
now your video
Yeah.
stopped. All right, go ahead.
I'm on my phone. No, I've missed the first half of this anyway, but I don't have a farm right now, and I'm trying to figure out what to pick, and analysis paralysis right now for sure. And I'm thinking about like
So
townhome
what
and finding.
what's your neighborhood like, Nate?
Well, I'm actually renting right now. So I moved here a couple years ago and I haven't bought yet. So I relocated. I'm in a new market. I've been doing this for 9 years, but relocated.
I mean, are you in a neighborhood with a lot of houses? I mean, it's okay if you're not a homeowner, if you're still renting.
Yeah.
If you are in a neighborhood that you would like to farm to, you don't have to be the owner. You live there. You're still the neighborhood realtor.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like even what area, like, okay, like should I choose like an area that I want to later live in, or should it just purely be on like, should I have like some type of a connection to the community, like have a friend that lives there, sold a house there before, or can I just go in cold, I guess?
So I'll answer that for me. So there's a neighborhood that I am dying to get into. One, I would love to live there, but it's a little bit on the top of the budget. But it's a beautiful neighborhood. The price point is anywhere between 700 and 3 million. So
Burns Park.
no, well, no, but I do like Burns Park too. So I really want to farm in that neighborhood, but I've not had any deals in there yet. I've showed several houses in there and I've looked in there personally, but I decided that I was going to start marketing to them. So they actually have a magazine in their neighborhood that only goes to their neighborhood. So I've started marketing in that. And then now like people are seeing my face, they're seeing me in our scout guide that goes out to that neighborhood, which is just another like advertisement thing. But I've actually had people who I know live in that neighborhood who are like, hey, I just saw this article about you and this thing. So people are starting to recognize, they're starting to see me. So, I mean, I don't live there. It's a half an hour from my house, well, 25 minutes from my house. So that's the neighborhood that I want to be dominant in. So if you have a neighborhood like that, just start farming to it. There's a guy, I get postcards for a guy whose office is 45 minutes from here. So, but I think if you just find an area, you just have to stay consistent with it. So Emily's doing her neighborhood. I'm doing one completely out. I just, while we were on here, ordered my postcards that I'm going to be sending out to my neighborhood. So I want to start doing some in my neighborhood. I'm doing the whole, flower seeds. I'm doing flower seeds for mine, like spring market. Go to the dollar store. They're 4 for $1. That's where I'm getting all my seeds, and I'm going to mail those out just to my neighborhood. So I could mail them out to the other neighborhood too, but I've decided I want to do more directly in my neighborhood as well as this other neighborhood. So it doesn't have to be only one. I'm going to start doing both and just see what I get.
And so Nate, I think the first slide is, how to pick your neighborhood. So if you don't want to do your neighborhood, it's important to pick one that isn't too big and isn't too small. I have 293 homes in my neighborhood.
200 to 500 is what I read.
Yeah. And there's some around me that are 600. There are some around me that are 100. There are some around me that are like 40. I would avoid the 600 and I would avoid the 40. So when I do farming, and I don't know if I really specified this, I walk my entire neighborhood and I drop these things off 4 times a year. It takes me 2 or 3 days. It's like 30,000 steps. But I don't door knock. I truly just leave it there. And I try to do it on the weekends or in the evenings, especially in the summertime, because that's when people are out. And that's when I get the most opportunities to be invited in and to talk to them and have those conversations. In the winter, it doesn't really matter. I'll just deliver them during the day or during the week. But I'm not trying to piss people off by being like, I don't want to answer the door. I simply just, it's almost like a farming pop-by. And I just leave it there. And yeah, there's a couple of houses where the next quarter I'm like, oh, look, there's my thing that's on the front porch that just, you know, fell off and someone's walked over it and it's been, you know, rained and snowed on. But most of the time it's gone and people have either used it or thrown it away or sent me messages and saying, thanks for the cookies, whatever. But that's why to me, like, I wouldn't pick something that's so huge because I'm literally walking to every single house. And the other thing is the price point, because obviously farming, picking your consistency, which is the number one thing. I do it every quarter. The houses in my neighborhood are 450 plus. So if I get just one sale, the ROI is there for years of what I'm doing. So if it's not your neighborhood, like Nicole said, you don't have to have a connection to it, but research one that you feel like you can get into, that you can become an expert on, knowing about the houses, knowing about the areas. And if that's a place that you want to live, sure, go for that one, because maybe someday you will. Yeah. And then you're already established in that neighborhood.
Well, and so one of the things with the neighborhood that I'm working on is there's one agent who dominates. She double ends every single deal in that neighborhood.
We're going to have to talk afterwards about what this neighborhood is, because I have my guesses.
And there's a lot of people who don't like that agent. She's not super ethical. So in my marketing, I actually put that ethics and honesty are my number one. So I just went on a listing appointment not that long ago in there, and they were like, we are not even talking to that agent. Like, we know the stuff that she does. We don't agree with it. So I made sure that I really honed in on how I'm super ethical, how, you know, basically how I run my business and my core values. And they were just like, oh yeah, okay, we like that. Yeah, that's great. You know, so I think, and I was even talking about that prior to me even knowing that that agent was even potentially on the table. I figured that out. So if you know that there's an area that's lacking or an area that is high turnover, I mailed for a while to one neighborhood that, and I wasn't super consistent with it, you know, as with most realtors, I think we're not very consistent in some of this stuff. There was a neighborhood that I mean, houses were coming up in there like every other week. We had multiple homes in this neighborhood. It was super high turnover. So I started doing mailers to that neighborhood because obviously a lot of people were moving. So, I mean, I did get a couple, you know, interested people that were potentially going to list, weren't really sure, and ultimately ended up staying. But it did get me in the door a little bit. So, you know, if you find those neighborhoods that are just super high turnover or up and coming that you really want to market to, find those spots. Angie, what were you saying? I just saw your message here.
Yeah, I just had one say we're going to hire her because we know she's a bitch and we want a shark basically selling our house. And I was like, okay, well, and they're like, it's not a bitch. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Because I probably at the end wasn't going to make them happy anyway, because they were going to have unrealistic expectations.
They probably needed that themselves.
Yeah. So it, you know, sometimes like, that's okay. Let her go do her thing. That's who she'll attract, the people that want her, and you'll attract the ethical people, you know, because that's what you want.
Yeah. And that's, you know, I'm not doubting that one agent is going to continue to dominate that neighborhood, but why not give them options? You know, why let them think that that's the only option they have?
That's right. So yeah, but I just thought it was funny. They're like, well, you're not a bitch. And I'm like, well, thank you. I think, but yeah. Next.
Right.
Well, and I think, it took me a little while of farming because when I first started, I was like, oh, this person called me in my neighborhood. Like, yes, it's working. And it was, but I would get a lot of people who would be like, oh, well, can you do it for, X commission? And, it took a little while to be comfortable in saying yes, but if I'm going to take a lower commission, I'm going to do less marketing. And here's what I do. And here's your options. Like, just because I'm your neighborhood realtor and I want to do more in this this neighborhood doesn't mean that I'm going to work my butt off for somebody who wants me to take a discount. And honestly, like, I had that conversation last fall, and that was the owner of the house that overpriced by $80,000. We were never going to work. And also being comfortable with that, it took a little bit of time. I just wanted to, we were talking about mailers. The other thing that you can do in that neighborhood is I send out mailers when I have a listing in anywhere, but it's a good way for me to show people that I'm not just your neighborhood realtor. Like, I have active listings, I have active businesses. This past January on my door hanger was the first time that I was like, why am I not putting my statistics on here? Because sometimes I kind of wondered, I'm like, do people think like, oh, I'm just, like, is she doing business? So I was like, yeah, last year I sold 18 homes for $8.23+ million. Like, yeah, I'm active. I'm good at what I do. Here's what I do. This is why you want to use me. And someone that I had met last year, they had me come in after I sent that one, dropped that one off. They called again like a week later and they're like, okay, we're ready to list. Can you come back over? So, but these are nice because it's just putting your face out there again, that you are active, but it's something a little bit different.
Where did you order those from?
So I do all of my printing from Dollar Bill, which is local Ann Arbor. And then they deliver it to the post office for me.
I just got a flyer for them literally yesterday.
I love them. I have built a really good relationship with them. They've made my for sale signs. They make my brochures for the listings. And again, I'm really just about relationships because they're an awesome company. They do great printing work. And if I'm ever like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, is there any way you can do this last minute? They're like, yeah, we'll be able to get it through. Good. And they also do delivery or pickup. So that's been really nice.
I know we're at time, but I have a question. I just want a second opinion.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I live in a not great neighborhood. I mean, like, it's not horrible. I live here, but it's not what I would choose for farming. But my broker said, but you're walking your dog, your kids go to school here, you're on the little league, whatever. And she said, the other thing is there isn't a dominant realtor. When signs go up and I'm annoyed, they're never consistently the same person. So she said, those are starter houses. There aren't as many of them. They sell quick, and hopefully those people are buying up and out. So she suggested me taking my money out of the neighborhood I was doing because people tended to stay there, let their kids graduate, and they weren't really moving until they were like going to Florida or Tennessee or whatever. So it was a longer life cycle that they were staying there. So this month, I literally did flyers to my neighborhood, and I want to see if you thought that was like logical, because maybe it's a two for where I list it and then I buy their better house.
Yeah,
I
mean,
do think that's
would.
logical because yeah, that's an opportunity for a buy sell.
Yeah,
but maybe do a secondary.
What's the age range you're talking about? Like starter homes?
I mean, so it was a big rental community at one point, and that's not happening anymore. So the age group, there are people with kids, there are older people here that will age out, but like the price point is starter homes. They're 2 and 3 bedrooms, 1 bath mostly. and they're anywhere from 130 to 185. So
I
a
mean,
single
So
guy could,
I think one way to look at it though is the opportunity that it's a twofold, a buy sell. So even if the houses in your neighborhood aren't of, you know, significant value, if you're helping them sell that and buy something else, then that's where some of your ROI is going to come from. But I bet if you've got a lot of like younger couples in there, and they're moving on with the first home, you can put out information, stories, and educate, and not just be like, here's your neighborhood realtor, but be the person who can teach them. Because a lot of times I think that when people buy their first home, it's a very overwhelming experience. And they didn't learn a lot, or, you know, even if they had a good realtor to teach them, it's so much of it just goes over your head. And
right.
taking the time to teach people and to educate them, really, that's a lot of providing value that is free. Maybe you can, you know, do a information session, or if you're thinking about this, or, you know, something. But I think that's the biggest thing, is a lot of people buying their first home and selling their first home, and helping them feel not so overwhelmed, and empowering them through education might be one of your best opportunities. And the more that happens in your neighborhood. And yes, if you are walking your dog, if you're out there, it's an opportunity to meet people. But you've got a great buy sell neighborhood then.
well, and what I was just going to say really quickly is, Renee, and this is the reason why I started in my neighborhood. How can we get annoyed at people listing houses when they have no idea we're realtors living in the neighborhood? Right? Like, I've only mailed out mailers to my neighborhood once, and it was just like the perimeter around where I live. I did not go, my neighborhood has 700 homes. So there's no way I am doing 700 homes, but I'll do my area, I'll do this area. But I can't get annoyed when people are not using me because they don't know that I'm here. So I think you should, you know, either double down and do both of your neighborhoods, or you know, if you don't want to spend the 75 cents per envelope to mail out, do what Emily's doing. Go door knock, door to door. Hey, you know, it's a great way to save some money. I'll tell you what, because I just ordered 200 cards, and, you know, I'm like, okay, how much are stamps now? 73 cents a piece. Okay. You know, so like it adds up. Now my mailers are going to cost $400 almost, instead of I could walk them and only pay $200. So,
And
you
then
know,
I was walking the better neighborhood. It's actually where I went to high school. So I started with hey, my parents used to be the people with the flamingos in the yard, and they used to party in their driveway. I graduated from the high school. I love the swim club, blah, blah, blah. And then the next month it was about my estate planning seminar. And then, yeah, I was walking 9 miles. It was crazy. And like I did.
It's a lot.
It's just because I was doing, you know, both sides of the street and da 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 da. But I didn't get anything from it. At the end of the year, I did co-sponsor a swim club party. And I love the dumpster idea, because they do a community-wide garage sale, and I was going to do the signs, but I think a dumpster for the end of the weekend might be a good idea. Or I love the Kona ice truck, and just be there on like Saturday with a lender or something and just talk to people. So this was a really good session for me. Thank you.
you're welcome. Yeah, thank you, Emily. All right. Well, let's get things wrapped up here. We're a little over. If anyone has any other time, Emily, where can everybody follow you? You want to give out your Instagram handle?
It is at emilygrish.realtor, GRISH.
All right.
And that's pretty much where you can find me all the time.
Instagram, best place.
It is the best place.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Emily. That was great. We appreciate all that you were saying and helping out, because I think there's a lot of people who want to get into farming, and like Nate said, analysis paralysis. Like, where do I start?
Yes.
How do I do it? Do I do EDDM? Do I go, you know, like, what do I do?
I will also say, if you guys if you reach out to me, if you want templates for anything I've done, okay, don't use my brochure template because it needed work, but I started. But if you want any templates that I've created to just start off, just let me know. I don't have a stand store. I'm not, selling things. I just share my template because I believe in collaboration if it helps other people. So.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll be back here next week with another Modern Agent Blueprint. I appreciate everyone joining us today. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.